Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Meher Sher and these are the headlines. A judge has been shot dead in Afghanistan's eastern city of Jalalabad. He is the third judge to be killed in less than a month as violence continues to rattle the war-torn country despite ongoing peace talks in Doha. Pakistan has reaffirmed its pledge to support Kashmiris in their struggle for the right to self-determination. In a statement, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said Kashmiri's struggle for freedom is just and non-negotiable. He said Pakistan expects U.S. President Joe Biden to address human rights violations in the occupied valley. Pakistan has launched a nationwide vaccination drive against COVID-19 with the first jabs administered to frontline health workers. The health ministry says 56 people have died and nearly 1,400 people tested positive overnight. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia has suspended entry to the kingdom from 20 countries to help curb the spread of the virus. Globally, there are over 2.25 million deaths and nearly 104 million infections. Myanmar police have filed charges against ousted leader Aung San Suu Kyi for illegally importing communications equipment. Police say the former state councillor will be detained until the 15th of February. The country's army seized power on Monday, detaining political leadership and imposing emergency for 1 year. The Pakistan Cricket Board has decided to retain the same squad for the second test against South Africa. The second match starts on Thursday at the Rawalpindi Cricket Stadium. Pakistan are leading the two-match series 1-0. Well, those were the headlines. More news in detail after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. And now for the news in more detail. We begin in Afghanistan, where a judge has been shot dead in the eastern city of Jalalabad. Police say the judge was heading to work when he was attacked by militants. He is the third judge to be killed in Afghanistan in less than a month. Earlier, militants shot dead 2 women judges working for the Supreme Court in Kabul. ISIS has claimed some of the targeted killings in the Afghan capital, but the government blames the Taliban for the murders. Separately, 4 security personnel were killed overnight by a car bomb at a military base in Restiv-Uruzgan province. Violence has surged across Afghanistan in recent months despite ongoing intra-Afghan talks. Moving on, Pakistan says turning back from the ongoing Afghan peace process would be a tragedy. Islamabad's envoy to UN says substantial progress has been made towards a political solution to the country's conflict. At a UN briefing on Afghanistan, Munir Akram said a political solution is the only path to peace. He said Pakistan believes in broad-based peace talks involving the full spectrum of Afghanistan's political landscape. The envoy said Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and other international terrorist groups should not use Afghan territory against any country. He urged all the parties to Afghan conflict to step up against violence and seize the historic opportunity of a political settlement. And Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has called on the global community to play its role in resolving the Kashmir crisis. The situation in the occupied valley has worsened ever since New Delhi revoked its status in August 2019. More details in this report by our correspondent Manahil Ahmed.
Occupied Kashmir has been reeling under an indefinite security lockdown and communications blackout for well over a year. Pakistan has repeatedly urged the United Nations and the world to act on behalf of Kashmiris. Speaking exclusively to Indus News, Qureshi highlighted this fact, saying Pakistan has raised the Kashmir issue at every world forum. He added that Pakistan expects a serious effort from the Biden administration to resolve the humanitarian crisis in Kashmir.
Well, the new presidency and the Biden administration has been very vocal on human rights. Look at their statements before coming into office. I expect them to live up to what they had said earlier on and address the human issue. You know, the military siege has been going on for now 18 months. You know, there's a communication blackout. There's a blockade. Independent journalists are not allowed in. International observers are not allowed in. Human rights organizations have been shunned out. So, you know, these are the things that need to be highlighted.
Nearly 300 Kashmiris have been killed by Indian troops since Article 370 was revoked in August 2019. Advisor to the Prime Minister on National Security, Moeed Yusuf, said Pakistan is confronted by an Indian administration that has gone from bad to worse.
The Prime Minister of Pakistan talked about India taking one step and Pakistan taking two to match that. Why? Because that's his vision. Unfortunately, since this government has come into office, India has taken about 1,000 steps, but in the opposite direction. That's where the change is required. This Pakistan is confronted by an India that's gone from bad to worse, where intolerance now has reached a level that is reflecting in foreign policy every day.
He said Pakistan has always chosen diplomatic and legal channels to resolve the Kashmir crisis. Earlier this week, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres urged Pakistan and India to come together and discuss the issue. However, India has continued to rebuff any international mediation. Manahil Ahmed, Indus News, Islamabad.
Pakistan has kicked off its COVID-19 vaccination drive with the first jab delivered to frontline health workers. Federal Minister for Planning Asad Umar formally initiated the national immunization drive in a ceremony in Islamabad. The National COVID-19 Command and Operations Center says the first tranche of vaccines has reached all federating units. Special Assistant to Prime Minister on Health, Dr. Faisal Sultan, says getting vaccinated will be voluntary. Meanwhile, Pakistan has recorded another 56 deaths overnight, pushing the toll to 11,802 deaths. Health officials reported nearly 1,400 infections in the last 24 hours. They say currently there are more than 33,000 active cases in the country. Out of 549,000 people infected so far, 504,000 have recovered. Moving on, Saudi Arabia has suspended entry to the kingdom from 20 countries to help curb the spread of the coronavirus. Saudi state media says diplomats, Saudi citizens, medical practitioners, and their families are exempted from the ban. The kingdom has reported over 6,000 deaths with more than 368,000 infections. Meanwhile, vaccine rollouts are facing roadblocks and challenges. World Health Organization chief has also warned the vaccine nationalism currently pitting countries against each other is harmful to all. The WHO team has visited a major virus research laboratory in China's city of Wuhan, seeking clues to the origins of COVID-19. Globally, the virus has claimed 2.25 million lives and infected over 103.8 million people so far. And now Democrats are taking steps to push through President Joe Biden's $1.9 trillion COVID relief plan without Republican support. The Senate voted along party lines, with Democrats edging out Republicans 50-49. This opens a debate on a fiscal 2021 budget resolution with coronavirus aid spending instructions. Using the strategy unlocks a legislative tool needed for Democrats to enact Biden's package in the face of Republican opposition. Talking to reporters, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said Biden termed the Republican proposal for a $618 billion package inadequate. Earlier, Biden met 10 Republican senators to discuss the possibility of a scaled-back economic rescue plan. Also, the United States says it will consider rejoining the 2015 nuclear deal only after Iran makes the first move. The State Department says if Tehran comes back into full compliance with its obligations under the deal, Washington would do the same. A department spokesperson said the U.S. would then use that as a platform to build a longer deal that also addresses other areas of concern. In a briefing, Ned Price said Washington will have to consider some steps before entertaining Tehran's proposal over the nuclear deal. Earlier, Iran's foreign minister proposed synchronized moves by Tehran and Washington to return to the deal. Javad Zarif said EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell could play the role of the coordinator for the Joint Commission of the deal. Moving on, Myanmar's National League for Democracy Party says the military has raided several of its offices and seized documents and computers. The party has urged the coup leaders to stop such unlawful acts. Meanwhile, the public dissent against the coup in Myanmar is growing. Staff at 70 hospitals in 30 towns across the country have stopped work to protest the military coup. Meanwhile, China and Russia have blocked UN Security Council's condemnation of the military coup in Myanmar. The UNSC met on Tuesday but failed to agree on a joint statement after Beijing and Moscow did not support the move. The blockage comes amid China's warnings that international pressure will only make things worse in Myanmar. And the Indian Supreme Court has refused to set up an independent judicial inquiry into the Republic Day violence during farmers' tractor rally. The court rejected 3 petitions filed by different lawyers related to the Republic Day violence. The petitions sought an independent judicial inquiry and demanded an end to calling the protesting farmers being called terrorists or anti-state. Meanwhile, Swedish activist Greta Thunberg has joined pop star Rihanna to extend support to farmers at Delhi borders. In a tweet, Thunberg said she stands in solidarity with the farmers. UK Member of Parliament Claudia Webb has also expressed her support to the farmers. New Delhi police have blocked access to farmers' protest sites with barbed wire and trenches. And in Russia, police have detained nearly 1,400 people during protests in support of jailed opposition leader Alexei Navalny. The Kremlin critics team called for the protests after he was jailed for 3.5 years for violating the conditions of a sentence. The United States, Britain, Germany, and the EU urged Moscow to immediately free Navalny. He was arrested 2 weeks ago on his return to Russia for the first time since being poisoned last year. In the U.S., the legal team of former President Donald Trump has challenged the Senate's authority to try him as a private citizen on an impeachment charge. Trump's lawyers made the objections as both sides filed briefs with the Senate a week before the trial. Trump's defense team said the chamber also lacked jurisdiction to prevent him from holding office again. The former president denied the charge of incitement of insurrection through his lawyers and called the trial unconstitutional. Meanwhile, Democrat impeachment managers said Trump should be convicted and barred from holding public office in the future. In an 80-page brief, they said Trump pointed a mob of supporters like a loaded cannon at the U.S. Capitol. U.S. President Joe Biden has signed 3 executive orders for a fair, orderly, and humane immigration system. They seek to reunite migrant families split up by existing policies and review the Trump-era migration agenda. One of the orders will set up a task force to reunite migrant families separated at the U.S.-Mexico border between 2017 and 2018. The second and third orders seek a review of Trump's immigration policies that curtailed asylum, slowed legal immigration, and canceled funding to foreign countries. Speaking at the White House, Biden said he was not making new laws but eliminating bad policies.
Clear. There's a lot of talk, with good reason, about the number of executive orders that I have signed. I'm not making new law. I'm eliminating bad policy. What I'm doing is taking on the issues that 99% of them, that the last president of the United States issued executive orders I thought were very counterproductive to our security, counterproductive to who we are as a country, particularly in the area of immigration. This is about how America is safer, stronger, more prosperous when we have a fair, orderly and humane legal immigration system. And with the first action today, we're going to work to undo the moral and national shame of the previous administration that literally, not figuratively, ripped children from the arms of their families, their mothers and fathers at the border, and with no plan, none whatsoever, to reunify the children who are still in custody and their parents. The second action addresses the root causes of our migration to our southern border. And the third action, the third order I'm going to be signing, orders a full review of the previous administration's harmful and counterproductive immigration.
We'll be back with more stories after a short break. Stay with us. We're back. Amazon says its founder, Jeff Bezos, will step down as the chief executive officer and become the executive chairman. The company says Bezos will transition to the role of executive chair in the third quarter of this year. Amazon Web Services chief executive Andy Jassy will take over as CEO of the company. In a memo to employees, Bezos said as executive chair, he will stay engaged in important Amazon initiatives. Bezos added he will have the time and energy needed to focus on other passions. The announcement comes after the company reported quarterly sales above $100 billion for the first time. Amazon's net sales rose to over $125 billion, beating analysts' expectations of $119.7 billion. In Australia, thousands of people have fled to evacuation centres as bushfire grows on the outskirts of the provincial capital, Perth. This comes as 2 million residents of Western Australia are under a 5-day coronavirus lockdown until Friday. Authorities told residents of the suburb Bullsbrook to ignore a stay-home order and leave immediately as hot weather picked up. The Western States Premier, Mark McGowan, said the region is facing an unprecedented situation. Authorities said the fire has destroyed 71 homes and a swathe of more than 9,000 hectares. Officials say 6 firefighters have had minor injuries. So far, no fatalities have been reported, while the cause of the fires is still unknown. And now a SpaceX prototype rocket exploded on landing during a high-altitude experimental launch from Boca Chica, Texas. The Starship SN9 blew upon its final descent like the SN8 destroyed before it. It was not immediately clear what went wrong. The Federal Aviation Administration said it will oversee an investigation into the crash landing. The rocket was a prototype for the heavy-lift rocket being developed by billionaire Elon Musk's private space company. It plans to carry humans and 100 tons of cargo on future missions to the Moon and Mars. Now, more than 8,000 people from Asia, the Middle East, and North Africa remain in Bosnia after the EU countries sealed their borders due to the coronavirus pandemic. Many live in tents in the woods or houses and factories damaged in the Bosnian War of the 1990s. More details in this report.
Among thousands of migrants stuck in northern Bosnia, children in one family are waiting out the bitter winter and missing their mother. Iraqi citizen Farhan Hazam and his 3 children were separated from his wife and another child while trying to cross into European Union member Croatia. Police turned Hazam and his children back to Bosnia, while his wife and another child made it across and then on to Germany. The family are sheltering in a house owned by Bosnians living abroad who agreed to let the family stay there with the help of a local charity.
40. Go and come back, go and come back. 40 game. I know it's 1 game go, 2 game go Slovenia and come back. As I know, it's police say sorry, no can't help you.
Zahida Bihorak Odobashik, a school teacher and activist, visits the Hazam family with supplies as well as other migrants living in a snowbound tent camp.
Those who try to help these people are condemned and mistreated. Very often, they are victims of verbal and physical violence. I have been the victim of a physical attack by individuals, members of certain Facebook groups, calling for persecution and violence against these migrants and those who help them.
The EU has repeatedly called on Bosnian authorities to provide accommodation to at least 1,000 people sleeping rough during the winter. Since early 2018, the bloc has provided more than 88 million euros to help Bosnia manage the migrant crisis.
The West Bank has been home to Israeli military bases and checkpoints that restrict Palestinian movement. In the city of Nablus, a Treehouse Cafe is open to give people an opportunity to immerse in nature. Details in this report.
A cafe in the occupied West Bank has a treehouse exterior with walls designed to resemble branches. Use of wood branches and soft, earthy tones, the cafe provides nature-like surroundings. This Palestinian cafe hopes to surround its customers with the feel of nature as tourism has become limited by the pandemic and Israeli restrictions. The cafe is famous for its tasty coffee and traditional Middle Eastern cuisine.
This place is very nice. When I enter it, I remember the old days. They say Nablus is Little Damascus. So when they opened this place, I really felt like it is Little Damascus here. Also, a lot of people visit the old city in Nablus. And when they will see this place, they will be more attracted to the area. And that will encourage tourism in Palestine.
The Treehouse Cafe was built in 2020 as the world's economy took a dive due to COVID-19 outbreak.
We Palestinian residents, because of the occupation, cannot go to many places. So when there is such a place like this, designed like this, it gives the feeling of being in nature, which is nice. Whoever cannot reach nature outside, they can come here as an alternative.
The pandemic and prolonged lockdowns in the West Bank have led to severe economic fallout. The owner of the cafe, Ahmed Akub, says the cafe has been open to attract tourists to the city.
And on the latest in business, European stocks are trading higher as positive market sentiment continues amid a busy week of earnings reports. Italy's FTSE MIB has jumped over 2% to lead the gains. European Stock 600 and Frankfurt DAX have added over 0.5% each. The CAC 40 in Paris and London's FTSE 100 have also edged up marginally. Earlier, all major Asian bourses traded higher. It's time now to take a look at the latest weather updates from around the world. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.